The Connector Next Door is your invitation to meet the natural connectors all around us. They represent the everyday event planners who are energizing their communities every single day. Their stories are familiar, fun, and full of charm. Your host, Lisa Garrow, is a lifelong event planner and has been a connection strategy coach for over a decade. She knows events can become energized connecting points where communities can gather and grow. Let's listen in as she strikes up a conversation with today's Connector Next Door.
For over a decade, Tanya Koshowski has led the team at Brown Bagging for Calgary's Kids as Executive Director. For 30 years, Brown Bagging has inspired Calgarians to take meaningful action by feeding and caring for kids who would otherwise go hungry. In 1 year, they have fed more than 6,300 kids. As a leader who has walked the path of change and challenge, Tanya now works to empower other leaders to listen to themselves, know their purpose, and care for others so that they can be impactful in their lives and work. With that belief, Tanya founded Tanya K Leadership Consulting, where she broadened her work and inspires leaders as a coach and guide. I first heard of Tanya and the work of Brown Bagging in 2010 when I had moved back to Calgary and joined the board of Entrepreneurial Moms of Calgary. The group leader was enthused about the work of the organization and raved about the role Tanya was having in caring and feeding for Calgary's kids. Amazingly, it wasn't until 2020 when we first officially connected. Our conversation was easy and fun, and we have since shared a couple of virtual coffees and last month, our first face-to-face coffee. It's amazing how life has a way of bringing people into our lives to encourage us and challenge us to be more of who we are meant to be. So good morning, everybody, and I'm so glad that I have my good friend here, Tanya Koshowski. I'm thrilled that you're here. I am so excited to hear your take on connection because you are somebody that I have admired for years from a distance, and we've only connected over the last year, I think, in a deeper way. So welcome. So glad you're here.
Oh, thanks, Lisa, for having me. I'm excited. And I also have been admiring you for years from a distance. So it's amazing. Like, these are some of the little gifts, respectfully, from COVID, right? That sometimes then we have this opportunity to reach out to people in a different way. So I'm more than happy to be here and have this conversation with you.
So many different changes over this last year, but the amazing thing to me is that the bottom line is that, are we still connected? Are we still really hearing and seeing and considering each other through these difficult times? And when I was taking a look at your LinkedIn, this would have been just as I was preparing for today, and I noticed, which I don't think I noticed before, but you have your why on your LinkedIn profile, and it says to encourage people so that they feel empowered to be the best they can be. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, I would love to ask you, what does connection mean to you?
That's good. And my why, I'd probably add to that as we evolve in life and learn and grow, is probably also to say that so they can be the best they can be and create good in the world. Right. That's also a big part of my why. And for me, connection is about, it actually starts with yourself. It's how do you connect with yourself? How do you know yourself, listen to yourself, love yourself in a real healthy, non-self-absorbed, egotistical way. But connection starts with yourself, knowing those pieces. And then from there, it's about like being authentic and being real, and good times and bad times and ugly times, and caring for each other and just showing up for people. And reaching out and having the courage to do that is I think what would some of the pieces that connection would mean to me in my experience and context of my life.
Well, and it's interesting that your focus on yourself, like you said, when you're talking about your why, your focus on yourself is so that you can reach out, that you can connect with others. And when we when we talk about connection, when you're saying authentically and know yourself well and be comfortable in your own skin, and sometimes we forget about that, and we wait for people to connect with us. We wait to be, quote unquote, chosen. We wait to be the ones that are picked for the sports team, or are the ones that are invited out, to some kind of an event or something. And then we feel connected because somebody's done that for us. But we sometimes forget, like you just said, that it really is our job first to prepare ourselves maybe to connect.
Yeah. I do think that. I think to do that, create good in the world, or whatever work is meaningful and matters to us, whatever context you're in, that it needs to start here. And it starts with the heart, as I would say, like that starts there, and then you can go to do whatever impactful, meaningful, purposeful work you want to do.
Well, and you have a really strong focus on teams. So in your leadership, what I've read and a lot of your resources and things that you're doing as far as bringing teams together, does that still apply? So people looking at where are they personally at? How are they preparing themselves? How are they putting themselves in a position where they can connect well? How does that relate to your work with teams?
Yeah. So the team that I currently work with at Brown Bagging is really, we talk very, very candidly and very openly about what is your self-care? What are you doing to create self-awareness? The invitation to even what is your personal why? What is your personal purpose, your personal value? Because when you show up in that way to then do the teamwork, it's about that connection with self and then with others. It builds trust. And then as a team, you get to pretty impactful, great places when you have a foundation of trust. I believe you can't have trust until you have that connection piece. And then, we go back to then it starts with yourself. So that is all in team. And if we want to create change and do collaborative, positive work, you do need to be in that place. I don't believe that to do teamwork, whatever it might be, can be sustainable and impactful unless you have that true connection and trust. You take that moment. It doesn't need to be like you're telling every deep, dark secret of your life with these people, but can you do some safe, healthy connection to build that team and do that work?
It's incredible to me when we talk about trust. Sometimes we feel like if somebody's going in for an interview and they want to get a role in some, whether it's a position with a startup, or maybe they're in a nonprofit and they're really passionate about the work, there is, and maybe it's human nature, but there's a tendency to put ourselves sort of in unbelievable state that we are, really great at everything. And I've been a sort of in that position before, where I'm like, oh, the only thing, that might be a shortcoming is that I just work too hard, or or I just get too much done and I'm not sure what to do. I need to reel that back. But we put up this image of what we want to be seen as. And then sometimes we wonder, why are we not connecting well with the people that are around us? I think sometimes we hold ourselves to a standard and we feel that's what others want to see. What you're talking about is actually, within reason, giving yourself the confidence and space and permission to be you, to really get to know yourself. What is it that you are bringing to the world, and trusting yourself that will be enough for the right people. And then having this really, the trust built. I would love to hear from you a little bit around that. When you're nurturing people on teams, when you're giving them opportunities to lean into an experience or take responsibility, as somebody that is in that leadership role, and that's something that you do, and you coach others to be great leaders, how do you navigate that where people really want to show up and show you the best of them? How do you give them the opportunity, the time, maybe the resources to dig a little bit deeper and say, well, what is it about this project or about what you're working on where we can find you in this and connect that with others? Do you ever work with maybe clients or your team in that way?
Man, there's so much there, but I would say probably it's the opportunity as a leader, if you're whatever you're leading, project, event, whatever it might be, to go in and actually show a little bit of that vulnerability.
Mm.
So how I show up as a leader in that space, even letting the team or the people I'm working with know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I'm good enough with both of those pieces, being willing and have the clarity and the confidence to say that. And also and like I use the word failures in a very positive way, but how am I failing forward? What are my failures? What are my learning opportunities that I've had? And often, I can think about a few that are kind of the ones I'll go to say, I did this mistake, within the team and with grocery gift cards and didn't get receipts. And what did I learn from that? Like, so I took that risk and, or how I can show up in a defensive way when I'm really feeling not grounded or insecure. And so I think to have that connection and build that trust as leaders, and build that an authentic way. Sometimes the opportunity and the responsibility of leaders is to show up with those pieces of, this is the strength, this is my weakness, but you know what, I will get people around me, that's your weakness or your strength and your weakness, and I'm going to let you shine. It doesn't need to be about me and my ego, but I want you to be in your best place, and I want you to be in your best place, and I'll support your weaknesses and you support mine. And that kind of helps to create that environment. I think in oftentimes in leadership, we don't, we feel like we have to show up like we've got it all figured out and we're perfect and we don't make a mistake and we, can do it all.
And in that, what you're saying too about being an example of that as the leader. And if you're calling that out from your team or the people that you're working with, or if you're a peer to peer and you're working on a committee, being the one that says, this is all of me. This is what I can offer. This is, where I'm feeling a little uncomfortable or where I might need some support. As a leader or as the lead of your project, there can be this gift you're giving people by allowing yourself to go there and showing them that it's actually possible, which is amazing. So Tanya, where did your desire to build meaningful connections come in for you? Like, what sparked that? Was there one thing, or was it sort of over time you just learned, I really love connecting the dots here. I love connecting people to each other. Where did that spark for you?
Yeah. I think it's a over time for sure piece. I don't think there's one, lightning bolt moment. It's for me, my dad was a business owner, and as young kids going into the business, and like his staff would know stuff about us, like how's your hockey, or how was your basketball game, or what's happening at school, or they would know things, or we would be like, we'd have those family connection times with employees. So even back then, that stood out for me, that they actually cared about their boss's kids. Was a place of connection. I think the other one that was impressionable for me, where the desire got sparked, was I was very fortunate to attend a boarding school in Saskatchewan, where we called our teachers and our principals and our presidents by their first names. So I would be at basketball practice with Wayne, my coach. He'd run my butt off in basketball, and then I'd be in algebra with him, and I just didn't do too well on a test. And then I'd be, in the cafeteria having dinner with him, and he's just treating me like a person. He would be like hanging out with me and talking to me like a real human being. And that I had the dichotomy of that at a different ed school experience, even like I said, high school, where it was like bow and be very separate. And, like there was this forced respect where I saw this relationship and how you could just do true connection and be fully seen. Right. So they saw me, sweating in basketball. They saw me struggling in algebra, but then they saw me and had dinner together. And then I'd go babysit their kids. Right. Like,
Amazing.
So those are, some of the experiences that just continue to evolve over time for me, that just sort of saw, and we might talk about it, but even as a younger child, I begged my parents for some connection times, and not knowing that's what it was. And it just really then saw, like, you see people fully, it builds the trust, it's the foundation, it's meaningful. I'm Facebook friends with some of my dad's staff.
Oh,
right?
Isn't that interesting?
Right. So just those, yeah, that's probably where the desires started. I saw people coming together to do really good things, and it was about that connection piece.
Well, and I love the analogy of where you're doing life and work and school and everything's kind of melding together. And I remember my girls. So I started my business as a single mom, and they were young, and I had to take them a lot of places, and I ran trade shows. And I remember having a little, you know, the little plastic bowling sets that kids would have.
Yes.
And so because a trade shows a lot of long linear hallways, and I would set up the pins at one side, and I'd be like, Journey, this is your thing. Like, you just, you can, make friends or whatever. And how my kids actually, as they grew up, they'd start to know clients, they'd know different venues, or they would know that, oh, in that particular project, that person's going to be there. So, and they would, and friends would bring them candy and things, like it was just the idea of what we might think as shortcomings. In your case, maybe you're away from home, in the schooling that you took, but how there are gifts in that as well, because we start to learn that the connections that are made most often are not orchestrated beforehand. There's, in events, we're always pulling people together and teams together, and we know certain people that are our go-to for certain things. But some of the best connections I've had, and like you say, even for the generations coming, behind us, for them to be in, and unfortunately we're in the space where we're all virtual right now. So some of those, the bumping into people, or some of those natural conversations, or funny little moments aren't happening in the same way. But that's the beauty, I think, of us really showing up and saying, like, this is who I am. I'm strong here. I'm maybe not as strong on this side. Love to hang out and, go for dinner, like you said, at school, like where you're just sitting and shooting the breeze about something. That's, I think, we talk about the charm in these stories of natural connectors like yourself, where that's where, when we're leaning in and just doing life with others, that natural connection can be such a gift to us. And I think a life lesson as we start businesses and projects and events that we're working on. You did touch on it a little bit, but you as a young connector. So I'm so curious about you as a little kid. So if we kind of go back and you said it kind of happened over time that you learned to connect and the value of connection. I would love to hear maybe an example of you when you were younger, and where you were bringing people together, or where people saw that in you.
Yeah. I will go. So boarding school for sure is one of those opportunities, but even younger, I will talk about the Seaport dance club when I was probably between the ages of like 7 to 11. Summertime, I was a Ukrainian dancer growing up and loved dance. I don't know how good I was, but loved it. Gave me joy. I was always like upside down in a cartwheel or something, putting music on. And so I saw the opportunity and like some boredom over summer in the neighborhood kids. So I started the dance club. The kids on Seaport Street started a dance club. I organized practices and rehearsals, and brought the kids in. They had their schedule, and of course, I was the elite dancer. So,
that's amazing.
I had to bring them together and tell them what to do and how to do that chasse right or wrong. I don't even know what that is. Anyways. So that was a place, like that truly was. And then what happened was then at the end of every summer would beg my parents, and this was at a pretty young age, would beg my parents that we could do a show. So they approved like the music and that what we could do to the house, and where we did the show in the backyard, on the deck, in the playhouse, like strawberry shortcake themes and all this. But it was bringing the families, now the parents together and grandparents together, over a meal, right? So then it was about, let's bring this connection of these kids that have had this fun over the summer. There was always watermelon and snacks when we were there practicing dancing, and then a big potluck of connection and community at the end of the summer as the dance club closed up for the year till the next summer. And so, like I say, that obviously it's a lighthearted sort of story, but it's true. And I honestly, when I look back at my life, that was a big piece for me, for connection, leadership. There's a food piece around that for me. Like, food is a natural connector.
And that it didn't stay just with the dancers, that you were bringing in parents and probably friends of friends, and the showcasing of people doing what they love to do. And I would guess that if I don't know if you had a video of that back then, but I don't have a lot of videos of me when I was little.
No
But if you can imagine the beauty of that environment that was created, and it didn't have to be perfect. And that's something that I often see is people are like, I just need more experience. I just need to take this other class, or I want to, and it's schooling is one thing. And I'm all for that if that's for you. But the other part of that is sometimes we have to throw ourselves into things that we are completely enthused and energized by, you dance. You not just the love for the other students that you were teaching or, coordinating, but it's like, what else could we do? And wouldn't that be fun? And the parents, that they would come along with you on that fun journey. Probably taught you a lot of lessons that you brought into the work that you do today. That you don't have to have everything figured out before you jump in and make it happen. Do you see it showing up for you in your work today?
I do. I think it's really about like just that ability to see opportunities or gaps in whatever work it is, whatever I do within the organization, in the world, even, and so within leadership consulting, seeing where there's some gaps, and then how do you get people together to fill that gap or meet that need or achieve that goal? And I think that comes from back then, and many things. So, I think even again at boarding school, there was we were given the responsibility as grade 12 kids to take care of the grade 9 to 11 kids. What do you know in grade 12 about that? And so there's an opportunity. There was a gap. My peers, my friends needed some leadership training. So march down to the principal's office and say, like, let's do some leadership retreat. Let's learn together. Right. I didn't know, but we figured it out together. So it was seeing that gap and then bringing people together to, again, bringing people together who maybe knew more than I did or had a different strength to offer. That it didn't need to be about me knowing all the answers at that age to even do the dance club, right? It was about what people could bring. So it's definitely a theme and in my life and my practice of leadership and my work and my life's purpose it is. I do think actually, if people really look back at the journey of your life and the highs and the lows, as hard as those can be. And I was with lots of empathy, know that there's people, like there's lots of hard stories in life, but if you do look at those patterns, it does show you things about what's meaningful or connection or pieces that inform you for today and your work today.
Exactly. Well, and I know you're a mom, so do you see any of those traits as you've been raising your kids? Do you see anything that they're either picking up from you or naturally they're just making connections?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think about a piece of connection for my kids is, with what our capacity was at times in our life, because I also was a single mom for a while, as we share that journey a little bit together, that our capacity for connection at the time would maybe have been just bake some cookies and take them to a neighbor or somebody we knew was having either a tough day or a celebration, and bring my kids alongside to do that and make that connection with those people. And I observe, like, very proud mom that, when we're with people and I see how my kids ask questions and reach out for connection and have those conversations and and then they remember details for the next conversation. And there's a genuine, real, authentic wanting to get to know people and build that relationship. I think it's from like taking cookies to people to just how we've done life, that's how they are showing up in the work that in their stage in life right now is at 20, almost 22 and 23. So 20, almost 24. So it does ripple through all areas.
Well, and I think as many of us, and we were talking about teams earlier, the idea of sitting on a team, and it's not just about mustering up the confidence or you just muscle through. I think there is a far more, doesn't have to be a gentle way, but there can be a really an ease of leadership, if we're truly looking for connection, if we're truly looking for what is the impact I can make with my ability to connect people. And when I talk about connection connectedness or being a connector, you might be someone that naturally, for those that are listening, you might be the project connector where you see some kind of a synergy between two different projects, or you might be there's ideas floating out there and you're the one that brings it together and allows an opportunity for people to see something that is concrete that they can choose to be part of or not. You might be more on the people side, that if connectedness means sharing with others and being part of a team. Families are built this way, businesses are built this way. The more connections, and we're starting here at Candy, we're starting, which but we're starting this new program called the Connection Architect. The whole point of the Connection Architect is that there's a foundation built on connection first. So whatever project, whatever event you are creating or you're building with your team, looking at where are you trying to make this connection? Why does that connection matter to your business or your organization or the group that you're working with? And then infusing that connection first, or this essence of connection in everything that you're planning is so important. But like we were talking about earlier, on a team, if we're not true to ourselves, if we're not showing up authentically, if we're not being vulnerable and building the trust with each other, that foundation of connection first really can't happen in the same way, because you're going to be building on somebody's image of what you want this project or this event to be. Yeah. And then when things kind of go off track, then we wonder why. And I believe it really does come down to being open and vulnerable and ready to prepare ourselves to connect. I'd love to hear your take on what that could look like for a team if they truly are building with that connection first foundation.
That makes me, I'll tell two quick stories. It makes me think of two things. So one I'll say about a team is, I was fortunate to do some work at the Banff Leadership Center. And I know one of the courses, the programs I was involved in, the very first hour we did it's like a speed dating game where you stand face to face with somebody at a short distance apart. We'd probably have to do six feet apart now and over a screen, but we can adapt. We can still do it. And we did this eye to eye contact, speed dating kind of questions. It was like a minute each. I've done this activity many times, and I've done it where I see the impact with teams, and I've done it where you don't see the impact. But if I think about that story at the Banff Leadership Center, the work that would happen with that strangers, and then we became a team instantly. We went deep and impactful and got way more done, I truly believe, than if we would have not had that time to just do that quick connection. Again, it was a speed dating, a couple minutes, eye to eye contact. And it shows that when you take that time for real intentional connection, how more quick you can get to that work, right? So that's a team piece there. So if that's related to events or projects people are leading, then how can you do that? And even with your clients, how do you do a little bit of a connection piece? You don't have to make it a formal exercise or standing there and make everybody uncomfortable. There's ways to do that connection to build that team. And then my other thing I think about when you're talking about that, Lisa, is so as leading an organization of about 20 staff, and then we've got hundreds of volunteers. But if I think about the staff, my perspective and what I bring to the table and think is needed for connection is one perspective. I have people on the team that I will act with different strengths and different weaknesses, and I will go in and check in with them and say, what do you think the team needs to hear right now? What do they need from me? Where are they at? Because I will miss some of those perspectives. So when we're wanting to get connection, then as a leader, I can show up in the ways, not just that I think are needed, but in the ways I may be missing or my blind spots, and having the people on the team that can also speak to that. And I think it also helps to do really great teamwork that's based starts with that connection piece. So being open to say, I know you see that perspective from somebody else. It's maybe different. Like, I'm not a numbers detailed person, so I have that person. Like, let me know that perspective and build that team to do the work. So, and I would say it's the same for like events or projects as well. Like, how do you bring those people in with connection to do the work, the teamwork?
And that's putting your own agenda aside, or your own, we talked a little bit about images aside, that we don't. And sometimes we, as event planners, we want to show up as the solution finder, as the person to put out the fire, as the person that has the plan. And sometimes we have to step back and say, really, what is the best for this project? And does it mean that I need to have a couple of other conversations or bring other people in? And knowing that the project and the event will be better because of it. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. So as we're kind of getting to our time together, this has been we've had some great conversations in the past, but I really love this chance to talk to you about truly what does connection mean to you. And I know, because you have a view on what's going on globally, when you talk about leadership, that isn't just about your own backyard or your own regional area. When we talk about the connection architect, we talk about anyone can build better connections from the ground up. I would love to hear from you, just as we're wrapping today. What do you feel a more connected world would look or sound or feel like? What would that, if you could just be sort of watching from the clouds right now, a little bit smoky clouds, but watching from the clouds, what would that look like for you if the world was more connected?
Yeah, I think my vision with that is, like really a world where like there's this, people are like really being authentic and leading that lives. They're leading from the heart. They know themselves, they know their purpose, they know their values, and they walk with that, respecting all the diversity and, the experience and the story from each person, but they really can step into their own authentically with a lot of care and respect and love for each other, and do whatever the difference they want to make in the world is. Yeah, that's kind of what my vision would be for around connection and as it relates to leadership as well.
I love that. And as you were just sharing that with us, I'm imagining when we were talking about teams, we're talking about an individual being ready to go, ready to connect, really self-aware of where they're at and how they can connect better. But wouldn't that be amazing if we kind of broadened that individual to be one team here in Canada, another team in Nigeria, another team in, we've got team members in Puerto Rico. Like
awesome.
if there was this idea that as a team, you have an essence, you have a way of doing things, but then maybe we walk over and we say, what about, we ask somebody that maybe is, they understand more about what it would look like to connect on a bigger scale. And now that we have this beautiful way, whatever platform you're using to meet virtually or to find other ways, there's all sorts of events that I've attended all over the world in this last, especially in the last 6 months, where I see the alignment. I see that, we could be doing things together, and in many ways, figuratively speaking, we're speaking the same language. And so to sort of pull that up from just your immediate team to what could that look like on a larger scale. I love that. I love the idea of where people are actually showing up for each other, and the world would just be I think in many ways would be more vibrant, maybe more ready for what's new, what's next. Thank you so much for that.
No, I do think I think what, again, the gift of COVID, again, with lots of care and respect in that, is that, we showed some caring and connection to our world, because there was lots of fear and uncertainty and this unprecedented time. And then we were seeing Holy. You're seeing me in my home office. You're seeing, you're hearing my dogs barking, you're hearing the kids, like there's kids doing homework beside you on the table. And so the world was showing up very real. Like I think about newscasts, right? We were seeing people, in their homes delivering the news in some ways. And so I think if that's an authentic piece. And I think if we can connect in that way, authentically, globally, with our strengths and our weaknesses and our hearts, we could do some pretty impactful things.
Love it. And that we don't want to lose that. We, you know, as much as they may have been birthed or out of necessity come up over COVID, these months of COVID and a lot of restrictions, but there's that goodness that we can pull that forward and use that for good. So thank you so much, Tanya. What a gift to chat with you today, and love having you on. Lisa. I'm sure we'll have more conversations in the future.
No, thank you. It's been so great to have this conversation. It's such an important piece to our world and our work.
Fantastic. How can people get a hold of you if they want to continue this conversation specifically with you moving forward?
Yeah, no, that's good. So I'm sort of on all social platforms. TanyaK.ca is my website. And just really practicing a people-centered style of leadership that starts with connection with self. And check me out there and connect. There's lots of mentoring workshops and different ways to connect for good in this new time in our world where leadership is changing. So that's all social platforms. Tanya K is the best way to find me.
Perfect. Leadership is changing, but I believe for the better. So thank you so much for the chat. I really love the chance that we've had to talk.
Thank you, Lisa.
The Connector Next Door podcast is produced by Candy Event Consulting, where everyday event planners and their teams gain clarity, get connected, and grow in confidence. Subscribe at www.candyconsulting.ca to hear visits with everyday event planners who are putting connections first.